Welcome back to Newsnight. Well, let's go back to our top story now. Nigeria has lost at least 612 people to flooding. 1.4 million people are displaced, over 3,000 injured. And the Nigerian Red Cross Society is trying to raise 10 billion naira to support flood victims. Well, joining us now is Benson Agbro. He's the Director of Disaster Management at the Nigerian Red Cross Society. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we go into the details of this money and why you need it and how you hope to get it, let me ask you, if you're on ground across Nigeria, what's accessibility like for you to these flood areas? We're told that the entire 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory have been affected. So what has accessibility been like for you and what have you seen on ground?
Thank you so much for that question. The Nigerian Red Cross was established by an Act of Parliament in 1960, and because of that, we have our presence in all the 36 states and the FCT, and the 774 local government areas. So even if a particular location is cut off, the Red Cross volunteers and members who are there send us a report of what they have assessed. So we have done a basic assessment in all the states, and we all know that some states are more affected than others. For instance, Kogi, Bayelsa, Jigawa, Cross River, Delta, Anambra, and so on. And our volunteers were there from the beginning. They did a lot of search and rescue, working with state emergency management agencies and other rescue operators who were on ground. At a point, our volunteers in Kogi State, what did they do? They wore their beeps like this and went on the road that was already flooded, and they were marking out the road to differentiate where vehicles should pass and where they should not go into, so that they don't fall into gullies or rivers that are already flooded.
That's a very scary situation, no doubt, and really commendable on your part. Tell us more about this appeal for about 10 billion naira. We hear about 13 million euros. And how do you hope to get these funds? Into which area specifically will these funds go into when you do get it?
Well, it's normal for Red Cross National Society like the Nigerian Red Cross to raise an appeal when there is a problem of this nature. For us in the Nigerian Red Cross, this has surpassed our resources, and therefore we appeal to our movement partners. When I say movement partners, I'm talking about the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. I'm talking of the International Committee of the Red Cross and all other national society out there, such as the British Red Cross, the American Red Cross, the Swiss Red Cross, and so on. And then also to people of goodwill, even in Nigeria, the private sector. Just last month, before the flood actually came, we had a parley with the organized private sector in Lagos. And these are the people who have been calling and have been making promises to this appeal. The appeal obviously is domiciled with the IFRC, the International Federation of the Red Cross. And we do hope that people from all over the world will contribute to this. What do we want to use it for? Very simple. People have lost their farmlands. People have lost their means of livelihood. People are hungry. So people get good water to drink. It's hard for some of the people who are impacted by this flood. We provide such things, and we will see a way of assessing those places others can access because of our membership, and then get them registered and provide some cash for them to be able to start their life again. We are not auxiliary to government, so we are just doing the little we can while the government does the large.
But, you know, today we've had, blame games, and we've had some state governors say relief hasn't gotten to us at all. Meanwhile, the minister in charge says 28 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, have all received. 4 more states were supposed to get their relief today. I just want to ask you, should you get this money, and we do hope that you get it, how do you determine the most affected persons to get them? How do you prioritize? Because I reckon it might not be enough.
Yes, it's never enough. We don't hope to reach everybody. That we cannot do. We have to accept that fact. But you do know that so many actors are on the humanitarian field. The government will do their bit, and those of us who are outside the government, humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross and others, and multinational organizations like those of the UN, we actually collaborating with some of them to see how they can fund some of our projects within this area. How do we do it? We have criteria for selection. There are some people who are already weak. When I say weak financially, physically, there are some people who are challenged physically. There are others who have been impacted by hunger crisis even before now. There are others who have one ailment or the other. So the impact of the flood was in their cases. So those are the people who we target. You would agree with me that most people, I mean, in a community, everybody is impacted by the flood, but there are others who are more impacted than others. Those are the people we go. We actually, because we have our membership everywhere, we can identify those people. We work with the community. Usually we establish a community resilience committee who we work with, who help us to identify these people. We have been to communities where you meet people and say, look, I don't fall in this your criteria, but I know who does. And then they take us to them, and we move from house to house. We don't gather people in a place and then we start registering. No, the Red Cross don't work that way.
So what about those in the IDP camps?
No, we visit the IDP camp.
What kind of help are you providing
for
them?
As we're talking, we have our members helping the state emergency management agencies to manage some of those camps. There are some states, the volunteers move from place to place. There's a particular incident that I get reports on an hourly basis, and there was a case of a woman who was to give birth. The Red Cross ferried her to the hospital. She gave birth. So we give first aid. I will give psychosocial support.
That's great to know, and thank you so much for the work you do. Benson Agbro is Director, Disaster Management, Nigeria Red Cross Society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.